Hi, it's Lauren here. So today I want to talk about Bujapidasana and some of the common mistakes I see people making with this asana. So Bujapidasana comes about halfway through the primary series and it's one of the peak kind of asanas in the series, so it's one of the more challenging ones. To do Bujapidasana, you really need a certain amount of flexibility in your hips, some strength in your wrists, your shoulders, and some core strength. And the good thing about the way the Ashtanga system works is by the time you actually come to practicing Bujapidasana, hopefully you will have built up all of the necessary strength and flexibility from practicing earlier asanas in the series. So I'm going to head back to my mat now and talk you through 4 common mistakes in Bujapidasana and how to avoid them. Okay, so if we come to a downward dog, and from here, bring your legs around, so you're setting yourself up. So this is if you're not jumping into Bujapidasana, if maybe you've just begun to learn this asana. So you bring your legs around, and often what happens is people straighten their arms and end up falling on their bum. So first thing to think about when you're preparing here is a nice low squat. So that's where some of that flexibility in the hips comes in. So bending down low, and you're trying to take your shoulders behind your legs. So spreading your fingers, placing your palms firmly on the floor. So feet here form part, hands even here form part of our foundation. So it's really important that we keep the fingers spread and the hands grounding into the mat. And again here, this is where some of the flexibility in the wrist is needed so that we can get our hands back on the floor. And then making sure that you don't straighten your arms. You're going to keep a slight bend in the elbows and keep them pointing backwards, and then from there you can cross your feet. And to begin with, you might cross your feet keeping them on the floor. So that's mistake number 1. Don't straighten your arms or you'll fall down. So we're keeping the elbows bent and we're keeping them pointing backwards. So starting again from a downward dog, jumping around, setting ourselves up. So the next mistake that people often make is when they try, once you've got to crossing your feet, people keep the feet flexed and then there's no room to actually take the feet through the arms. So here, what we want to think about is pointing our toes. So sometimes pointing the toes can be the difference between having the space to get the legs through the arms and not being able to find that space. So don't flex your feet, point your toes. Okay, so mistake number 3, beginning from a downward dog, and again, stepping back around, is that people end up crossing their legs too high up their arms, and then what happens is it becomes really hard to take your feet back. So I'm really spreading my fingers, I'm keeping my arms bent, and I'm pointing my toes, but because my legs are too high up my arms, I can't move my feet back in between my hands. So bringing the legs a bit lower so that they're in the crease of the elbows, I then am able to pull back and lower my chin down. Okay, so number 3, keeping your feet crossed in the crease of your elbows so you can then use the resistance of pulling your legs back against the crease of your elbows to bring your chin down to the floor. Okay, and I'm back in downward dog again for point number 4. So the fourth mistake that I often see people making in this asana kind of relates to mistake number 3. So if we come back to set ourselves up, so remember number 1, keeping the elbows bent. Number 2, pointing the toes back. Number 3, letting my legs come into the crease of my elbows, okay? So then from here, sometimes people try to actively reach the head down to the floor. So now my head's on the floor, could be my forehead or my chin. It becomes really hard to find the strength to lift myself back up, okay? So what we want to do instead, so setting ourselves up, nice strong foundation, bending the elbows, toes point, and then rather than actively trying to take my head down to the floor, what I'm actually doing is pulling my feet back. So I'm pulling my feet back, and then my chin comes down to the floor, okay? So by actively pulling the legs back, the chin makes its way down to the floor on its own. And from there, this could actually be the difference between, I'm going to come down, that could actually be the difference between you being able to get your chin on the floor or your forehead on the floor. So it's kind of like a pendulum action. As you pull back and up with your feet, the front part of your body begins to lower down. So that's 4 common mistakes with Bujapidasana and how to avoid making them. Remember, it's always best that you learn these asanas from a teacher. These videos are only kind of meant to be practice aids to help support you in your practice. If you are learning Bujapidasana or any asana, remember, take it easy, work at a pace that suits you, and I always recommend trying an asana each day, no more than 3 times. Often when we become tired, that's kind of when we're more susceptible to injuring ourselves. So have fun, enjoy your practice, and at the same time try to cultivate a sense of non-attachment. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave me a comment and let me know, and make sure that you're signed up to my mailing list so that you can receive more useful videos and practice tips. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.